Okay, we're getting back into the tabernacle. If you have your handout from last week, bring it out. If not, Lucas is going to put it up on the screen. We've been over the gate, the altar of burnt offering, the brazen laver, the outer court, and now we'll get inside, past the altar of incense. We've gone over that also. The altar of incense, the candlesticks, the table of showbread. We're getting past the veil into the inside of the tabernacle. Within the holy place of the tabernacle, there was an inner room called the Holy of Holies, or the most holy place. Judging from its name, we can see that it was the most sacred room. No ordinary person could enter. And it was God's special dwelling place in the midst of his people. During the Israelites' wanderings in the wilderness, God appeared as a pillar of cloud or fire above the Holy of Holies. And the Holy of the Holies was a perfect cube. Its length and width and height were equal to 15 feet. A thick curtain separated the Holy of Holies from the holy place. This curtain was known as a veil, and was made of fine linen and blue, purple, and scarlet yarn. And there were figures of angels embroidered onto it. The angels, or the cherubim, were spirits that served God, and were in the presence of God to demonstrate his almighty power and majesty. They also guarded the throne of God, and these angels were also on the innermost layer of the covering of the tent. If you looked upward in there, you would see the figures of the angels. The word veil in Hebrew means a screen, divider, or a separator that hides. What was this curtain hiding? Essentially, it was shielding a holy God from a sinful people. And whoever entered into the Holy of Holies was entered into the very presence of God. In fact, anyone except the high priest who entered the Holy of Holies would die. If you entered there, you would die. Even the high priest, God's chosen mediator, can only pass through the veil and enter the sacred dwelling once a year. On a prescribed day, they called it the Day of Atonement. The picture of the veil was that of a barrier between man and God. And God's eyes are too pure to look on evil. And he can tolerate no sin. That's in Habakkuk 1:13. The veil was a barrier, or 1:13, was a barrier to make sure that a man could not carelessly or irreverently enter into God's awesome presence. Aren't you glad we don't have to do that no more? Even as the high priest entered the Holy of Holies on the Day of Atonement, he had to make serious preparations. He had to wash himself. He had to put on some special clothing, burning of the incense to let the smoke cover his eyes from direct view of God, and bring blood with him to make atonement for sins. They also tied a rope around them in case they died in there, so they can pull them out. It was nothing to take not serious. In other words, it was very serious deal to get into God's presence. But only the high priest entered the inner room, and that only once a year, never without blood, which he offered himself for the sins of the people they had committed in ignorance. That's Hebrews 9:7. Within the Holy of Holies, shielded from the eye of the common man, was one piece of furniture comprising of two parts: the Ark of the Covenant and the Atonement Covenant, or the mercy seat, which was on top of the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark was a chest made of acacia wood, overlaid with pure gold inside and out. It was 3 feet 9 inches long and 2 feet 3 inches wide and high. And God commanded Moses to put in the ark 3 items: a golden pot of manna, Aaron's staff that had budded, and 2 stones on which the 10 tablets, the 10 commandments were written. The atonement cover was a lid for the ark. On top of it stood 2 cherubims, or angels, at the 2 ends, facing each other. The angels were symbols of God, divine presence and power, were facing toward the ark with the outstretched wings that covered the atonement cover. The whole structure was beaten out of one piece of pure gold. The atonement cover was God's dwelling place in the tabernacle. It was his throne, and it was flanked by angels. God said to Moses in Exodus 25:22, "There above the corner between the 2 cherubim that are over the ark of the testimony, I will meet you and give you all my commands for the Israelites." And Leviticus 6:2 says, "Tell your brother Aaron not to come whenever he chooses into the most holy place behind the curtain in front of the atonement cover on the ark, or else he will die, because I appear in the cloud over the atonement cover." Serious business. The ark of God, which is called by the name of the Lord Almighty, who is enthroned between the cherubim that are on the ark. 2 Samuel 6:2. In Isaiah 37:16, "O Lord Almighty, God of Israel, enthroned between the cherubim, you alone are God over all kingdoms of the earth." And 1 Timothy 6:16 says, "Above the ark and the atonement cover, God appeared in his glory, unapproachable light." The light is sometimes referred to as the Shekinah glory. The word Shekinah, although it doesn't appear in our English Bibles, has the same roots as the word for tabernacle in the Hebrew, and refers to the presence of the Lord. Because the ark was God's throne among his people, it was a symbol of his presence and power. And they took it wherever they went. There are quite a number of miracles recorded in the Old Testament surrounding the ark. With the presence of the ark, the waters of the river Jordan was divided, so the Israelites can pass over, can cross over. The walls of Jericho fell so that the Israelites could capture Joshua 3:14 through 17 and 6 through 21. Yet the ark could not be treated irreverent, because it was a symbol of God's judgment and wrath. When the Israelites fought their enemies, the Philistines, during the time of the prophet Samuel, they disregarded the commands of the Lord and took the ark out to the battlefield with them, summoning God's presence. God caused the Philistines to win the battle, and the glory departed from Israel. The ark of the Lord was taken, 1 Samuel 4:22. However, God showed his power to the Philistines when he caused their idol Dagon to fall to the ground when the ark was placed next to it, and several Philistine cities were plagued heavily with the ark in their mix. 1 Samuel 5. Ultimately, the ark was returned to Israel. The Philistines didn't want nothing to do with it. Articles in the ark. What seems strange to us today, hidden in this golden box representing God's presence, were not treasures and precious gems. We would think it would be something that was worth a lot of money. But the 3 unlikely items was a jar of bread, a stick, and 2 stones. What were these curious keepsakes, and why did God want them in the ark? The manna, Aaron's staff that budded, and 2 stone tablets with the 10 commandments. First, the pot of manna. This is what the Lord had commanded. Take an omer, a portion, for one man of manna, and keep it in for the generations to come, so they can see the bread I gave you to eat in the desert when I brought you out of Egypt. Exodus 6:32. God provided this bread-like food for the Israelites when they wandered during their wanderings in the desert. It was the bread from heaven. He continued to provide food daily and faithfully, but the people were not one bit thankful. We see that over and over and over again. They complained and wanted something else. The pot of manna was an uncomfortable reminder that despite what God had provided for them, the Israelites had rejected God's provision. Aaron's staff that had budded. The people, out of jealousy, rebelled against Aaron as their high priest. To resolve the dispute, God commanded the people to take 12 sticks written with the names on the leader of each tribe and place them before the ark overnight. The next day, Aaron's rod from the house of Levi had budded with blossoms and almonds. And God confirmed his choice of Aaron's household as the priestly line. In Numbers 17:10 it says, "And the Lord said to Moses, put back the staff of Aaron before the testimony to be kept as a sign for the rebels, that you may make an end of their grumblings against me, lest they die." The staff reminded the Israelites that on one or more occasions they had rejected God's authority. And the 2 stone tablets with the 10 Commandments. God had chosen the Israelites as his people. For the Israelites to qualify for that distinction, God had demanded one thing: that they must obey his law, the 10 Commandments. That was a conditional agreement. Exodus 19:5-6, "Now if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all nations you will be my treasured possession. Although the whole earth is mine, you will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation." The Israelites had said heartily, all that the Lord had spoken, we will do. In the response to God's covenant, Exodus 19:8. But how did they fare? How do you think it turned out? Miserably. It was impossible for them to keep the 10 Commandments perfectly. Over and over again, they violated God's holy law. And God made it clear to them the consequences of their sin by sending plagues. Natural hazards, foreign armies upon them, and the stone tablets of the ark were a reminder that the Israelites had rejected God's right standard of living. The atonement covenant. Every year the high priest would enter the Holy of Holies on the Day of Atonement, bringing burnt incense to shield his eyes from a direct view of God's glory. He sprinkled blood from a bull onto the atonement cover for his and his household sin, and sprinkled blood from a goat for all the sins of Israel. God promised that when he saw the blood, it would cover over man's sin. God did not see the sin anymore, but the provision instead, and it pleased his wrath. We're going to end this here. We've covered every aspect of the tabernacle as far as what it means and how it was laid out. And when I pick up in a couple of weeks, we're going to see Jesus in the tabernacle. We're going to celebrate communion, or the Lord's Supper, or whatever you like to call it. And we do it every first Sunday of every month here in this church. You don't have to be a member of this church. Matter of fact, there isn't even a membership in this church. But you do have to be a member of God's church. You have to know Jesus. If you do, we welcome you to come up. Jesus at the Last Supper, Jesus broke the bread. And he said, "This is my body, eat. And when you do, remember me." This is something we do in remembrance of what the Lord did for us on the cross. And he took the cup and he said, "This is my blood. Drink in remembrance of me, of what he did on the cross." So if you're a believer and you're part of God's church, I welcome you to come up front. Mikey, can you come up here? And take part of the communion.